What's up, investors? Is the Russian dude. There are moments in history when a rumor does not feel like a rumor. It just feels like a warning flare, something shoots up in the sky, burns bright red, and everyone kind of watches it fall, but just pretends not to see it. Or like, okay, whatever. That's exactly what's happening whenever a Russian Telegram channel, VChK-OGPU, I know it's a hard name, but it is what it is, when it published what it claims a blueprint for a future war in Europe. A war not limited just to Ukraine. A war that supposedly involves mass mobilization, frozen bond deposits, losses counted not in thousands, not in hundreds of thousands, but in the realm of 20 million people. 20 million, same for the Second World War almost. At first glance, you just want to dismiss it, you want to laugh it off as another anonymous Telegram horror story, as a clickbait, except that this is not just another anonymous clickbait Telegram channel. This is a source that has repeatedly dropped insider information so accurate that the authorities reportedly pressured Pavel Durov himself, the creator of Telegram, to block it. That does not happen over fan fiction. So today we're going to break this down. Where do these leaks come from? How predictable is a personalist autocracy? Why does 2026 election matter more than just you think? And are we actually going to stare at the prelude as something far bigger than the current war? Let's try to answer all these questions in today's episode. People love imagining that the Kremlin works like a secret group chat, that ministers, oligarchs, governors, security chiefs just wake up, pour their tea, normal tea, not the Russian tea, and just hop on Telegram thread called How to Rule Russia Today, as if they calmly coordinate how to squeeze the public and just split the pie of the budget. Well, reality is much uglier. The Russian power structure is not a brotherhood, it's more like a snake pit. These are not loyal teammates, they are rivals competing for money, influence, and most importantly, access to the biggest boss. They do not trust each other, they do not share everything, and if one of them can sabotage another, guess what, they will. In a relatively normal political system, these internal battles spill to traditional media. Kommersant newspaper would cite a source close to the cabinet. Vedomosti media will just gain access to a memo. That was the ecosystem. Well, imperfect, but kind of functioning. What about now? Independent media inside Russia has been completely strangled. Exiled outlets are labeled foreign agents or wars, domestic media survives by reprinting official press releases, but the need for communication between power groups did not disappear. That's why anonymous Telegram channels became the new battleground instead. Some of them are pure fiction factories, blackmail swamps, smear campaigns disguised as journalism. And then there is this VChK-OGPU. Is it imperfect? No. Is it clean? Absolutely not. But it has a track record at least. It has delivered rumors that turn out to be true. And when the state does not jail the author but instead leans on Durov to delete the channel itself, well, that should tell you something. That kind of leverage is used sparingly. So when this channel publishes a projection of a 2028 operation to demilitarize NATO, with mass mobilization, financial seizures, you just don't scroll past it. You pause at least for a second, you read, highlights at least, and you think, can this potentially be true? Because nobody believed Putin would ever start the biggest war on European continent in modern history, and well, yet here we are. But before we panic, we need to understand something more fundamental. Can we even predict what a personalist autocracy will do next? That's where things get very complicated, and that's exactly what we will explore further in our next chapter. Let's be honest, predicting the next move of a system built around one single person is a nightmare. Because ultimately it comes down to what's happening inside that one person's head. And here is the uncomfortable truth. That head has been living in a bubble since 1999. Just think about it, for almost 26 years, Putin has lived in a hyper-controlled environment, surrounded by security layers, pampered, shielded, moved around like a priceless museum exhibit. You cannot even sneeze next to him, you cannot just drop by for coffee, chat with him or something. Unlike 19th century monarchs who mingled with other elites, he interacts mostly with just subordinates. Even the biggest names, Sechin, Miller, Medvedev, the oligarchs, the supposedly inner circle friends, still operate within the boundaries of his will. Their freedom is about as flexible as the Kremlin chef deciding what to serve Putin for breakfast. This kind of isolation surely should do something to a person, right? Boris Nemtsov once described how after just a year and a half in high office, he forgot how to even press elevator buttons himself. Just now imagine what 26 years does. And then add just one more detail. Putin is famously not that internet savvy. In 2026, that's not a small quirk. It's a generational disconnect. Most people, even his age, use the internet to check pensions, book doctor appointments, talk to grandchildren. He instead consumes a curated newsfeed, filtered, selected, sanitized, consisting only of positivity inside and outside of Russia. Everything is perfect and Russia is the greatest country in the world. So, well, obviously, when we try to predict what he will do next, we're not just predicting a normal political actor. We're trying to understand the behavior of someone living in a completely parallel informational universe. The only tool we have is just pattern recognition. We look at what he did in the past in the similar circumstances before, and then try to predict it, but, well, even that is shaky. So when VChK-OGPU outlines a massive war plan, the question is not, is it technically possible? Well, of course it is. We see right now what's happening in Ukraine, right? Because, yes, it is possible, because machinery is being built, e-draft systems appear, unified databases, restrictions on travel, legal groundwork literally everywhere. The question now just is timing. And timing in Russia often revolves around just one single thing, elections. Which brings us to the next chapter, where the calendar matters more than the cannons. September 2026, another general election in Russia. You might think it's irrelevant, the opposition is barred, real challenges are excluded, the outcome looks predetermined, just like all the previous elections, so, I mean, what's the big deal then? But here is the thing. Even a controlled election is a dangerous animal. Imagine for a second a crocodile, alligator, doesn't matter. Its jaws tied, teeth removed, cornered, it looks harmless. But you never know when it's gonna lash its tail. For the Kremlin, every election is that particular crocodile. Even if the candidates are handpicked, even if the ballots are managed, even if the result is guaranteed, the process introduces still uncertainty. It's pretty much a stress test, and the system knows it. Leaks suggest that United Russia's internal forecasts are not glowing. Public disconnect over socio-economic issues is very real. People feel inflation, they feel stagnation, they feel fatigue. And historically, the most radical, unpopular and risky decisions in Russia do not happen right before the elections. They happen right after. After 2018 vote, for example, they raised the retirement age. After earlier cycles, they rolled out restrictive laws. The most dramatic escalation of the current war came exactly after an election cycle was safely behind them. Year one after the election, this is the most dangerous window in Russia. So if we think about it, a massive new mobilization, freezing bond deposits, or launching a war beyond Ukraine before September 26 would be a colossal political gamble. Most likely it's not going to happen. But later, that is the question. Does that mean that maybe it will not happen at all? Well, no. But it makes it less likely that it's going to happen immediately, right now. The infrastructure for mobilization once again is being polished. The database is synchronized. The draft mechanism tightened. And that is not imaginary. That is real. But building a gun and pulling the trigger are two completely different things. And that leads us to the financial argument, the claim that war spending itself signals a looming expansion. Let's unpack that in more details in our final chapter. VChK-OGPU argues that Russia's war-related spending far exceeds what's needed for the current conflict. Numbers like 12% of GDP are thrown around, massive sums, trillions of rubles, investments dwarfing even the entire Ukrainian economy. On paper that sounds like preparation for something bigger. But here is the uncomfortable, for the Kremlin at least, counterpoint. The Russian state overspends on absolutely everything. Sochi Olympics, $50 billion for just 2 weeks of spectacle. State tech projects that vanish into embarrassment. Yes, check. Infrastructure budgets that somehow evaporate while a single school renovation costs as much as building 2 new ones. All familiar. Excessive spending is not new in Russia, it's pretty much a tradition. Everyone is used to it. When money flows through the system, 1 ruble might reach its destination and another just disappears, and then 10 are simply burned for the show. Palaces, yachts, shoe boxes full of cash found under the bed. These are not just rare incidents. They are a part of this ecosystem. Does that mean that there is no long-term military ambition? Well, of course not. The legal and administrative groundwork for large-scale mobilization is real. Travel bans can be implemented quickly. Draft notices can be issued electronically. Databases are unified. If the gun is assembled, polished and mounted on the wall, eventually it will fire one day. We even have a saying in Russia. Stick fires at least once in a while. Doesn't make sense, but you get the idea. The question now is, when is it gonna fire? As of late 2025, there is no visible full-scale buildup matching the apocalyptic projection of millions mobilized and bank deposits seized overnight. Such a move today would likely destabilize the regime itself. Imposing travel restrictions is one thing, forcing millions into uniform at once is completely another. A scenario of that magnitude could trigger internal upheaval before it triggers a European war. So, where does all that leave us? With uncertainty. With a leader who has made war part of his identity. With a system that has built the tools for escalation. With an election cycle acting as a temporary break. And with a society that is tense, fatigued, but not yet pushed beyond its breaking point, unfortunately. The boy kinda has thrown the gas tank into the bonfire before, and we know how the story ends. The only thing we still don't know is the timing, the radius of the explosion, and who will be standing to the fire the closest and burn the fastest. Right now, fear is not irrational, but panic is premature. The machinery is there, the patterns are there, the risks are real, but the calendar still matters. The election hump still stands, and until that hurdle is cleared, the most catastrophic scenarios remain possible, not inevitable. We will keep watching the legislative changes, the fiscal shifts, the reshuffles on the top, because when the system emerges from 2026 consolidated and unshaken, that is when the next chapter could truly begin. And guys, as always, if you want to have these clear breakdowns, no hysteria, no denial, just sober analysis of where things might be heading, please make sure to subscribe to our channel. There's a lot more to unpack in the months ahead, and you do not want to miss what is coming. Alright, now we're watching this new on Patreon, so it's time for ridiculous Russian propaganda. Oh. So yeah, today we have this article which basically says that if you post a photo of a table full of food for the new year, for the birthday, for any other celebration, and if it looks like too good, with a lot of food, they might actually urge the tax authorities to check your taxes. Because how dare you to afford food, right? I mean, oligarchs have 20 million euro yachts, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, they made it. But if you have caviar on your table, and tangerines, and maybe a pomegranate juice, that's it. Check his taxes. He's definitely a corrupt person. Well, typical Russian news, what else?
To sway, we do not believe in